Welcome to the Business Spotlight Podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host for today's episode. And today on the show, I have Christine Healy, founder and broker at Healy Pre-IPO, as my guest. We're going to be learning about her business, her journey to business ownership, best practices, and challenges that she's faced to give you that inside look to what it's like to build and operate a business. Welcome, Christine. Great to meet you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Kay. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Well, before we dive into all things business, I'd love to share with the audience a little bit about you. So take us back as far as you'd like and share a bit about yourself.
I grew up very international, so I'm the kid of two lifelong expats. So I was born in New York, but my parents quickly started moving around the world and ended up raising me in London until I was 18. Then after that, spent some time off and on in Hong Kong, in Abu Dhabi, and just moved all around myself. So international is very much part of my DNA and even part of my business to this day. Um, Career-wise, I've done a bit of everything within finance. So I started in traditional investment banking, covering energy and tech sectors, and eventually stumbled into this nascent industry of private stock trading in 2018 and fell in love with it. It's a super growing market and have just been doing that every day ever since. So going on 8 years or so now, fully focused on the private markets and helping people invest in private companies. So I love what I do. I'm obsessive about it. I'm fanatical about it, and it's really, really fun. Not just my work. It's also very, very fun and rewarding for me. And then on the side, I live in Austin, Texas. It's a great place for food, for nature, for comedy, and a number of other things. So having globe-trotted a little bit, I've ended up being based in Austin the past 3 years.
Oh, wonderful. Well, love to hear the international upbringing. I could kind of hear a bit of an accent, like a London vibe, but it wasn't like quite super strong. So I was curious. So that makes sense. Very cool. Well, let's dive into the business because it sounds like you're super passionate about that. So you said 8 years ago you started. Was that when you founded the company?
That was when I left traditional investment banking and I wanted to join a startup. And I basically found this startup, only 20 something employees. I think I was employee 23 at the time. And they were focused on building a stock market for private companies like Airbnb. Immediately, I thought, oh, yeah, that should exist. That is really, really cool. Bookmarked it, was immediately interested. And just kind of grew up in that business, doing a bit of operations, sales, everything in between, strategy, and really fell in love with it. So I joined as an associate, and then senior associate, and then director, and then senior director, and was there for a good chunk of time just at the employee level. After that, I was the portfolio manager of a pre-IPO fund. So doing the same type of work, but in a different seat, being more on the buy side, being in the investor hat versus just a broker and the other work I was doing before. So I did the portfolio management of that fund for about 3 years, and that led me to wanting to start my own business. So a year and a bit ago, I went totally solo and started the solopreneur journey, and I've been an independent stockbroker focused on pre-IPO transactions. Companies like SpaceX, OpenAI, Stripe that are still private, and brokering within this niche that I love so much.
That is so cool. I'm excited to dive in. Well, congrats on this, like kind of like making it through that year. You're rocking and rolling into year two. So let's talk about your ownership structure. So are you currently sole owner? Is there any other investors involved or any other like ownership structure?
So, purposely no investors. I've taken the strategy of wanting to stay purposely small and to keep control. There's a lot of competitors in my business that are going really big, that have VC funding or have gone public, et cetera. And it's really a scale play. And I'm taking a totally opposite approach. And I'm saying service in my niche market doesn't really scale well. And, maybe that's a feature, not a bug when it comes to my own business. And I'm just going to keep this small business focused on quality of care of my clients and, not take on the VC funding, which could really warp the the best strategy for the business as a whole. So I do have an LLC. Because I am an investment broker, I have to work within certain regulatory constructs. So it's not as simple like as having an S corp or something like that. There's a few extra layers because of the securities regulations. So I have to um, operate in a lot of these deals as an individual that's licensed rather than my LLC. But I do have an LLC, which I can use for certain parts of the process.
Okay, now that makes sense. Okay, awesome. And now, do you currently have any employees, or are you looking to bring on employees in the future?
I have a part-time executive assistant who I always tell people just keeps me organized, keeps me functional, deals with the, influx of emails and things like that, helps me schedule things, helps with light tasks. So at the moment, not an employee, more like an independent contractor. So I don't pay for healthcare or anything like that, or, she has to handle her own taxes, et cetera. So that's worked really well for me so far. I think if I do hire someone, the next person would probably be some sort of operations function. Probably still part time at the end of the day. I think as a business owner now, um, I think I can be very strategic about what hours I actually need someone, or just let them do their own thing as long as the work gets done. They can figure out how they want to do it. They can work from home. They can do it at their own hours. Like my assistant actually a lot of the time works in the evenings, and I don't really care. She can do whatever she wants from her own home. Doesn't matter to me as long as the work gets done. So if I were to hire that operations person, it would probably still be in a contractor capacity, just to avoid having any actual employees on my books, so I can stay lean and stay a solopreneur.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now let's dive into kind of like your day-to-day roles, because as an entrepreneur, it's always fluctuating. So would you say you're mostly working in the business or on the business, or is it a hybrid of both?
I would say the actual admin side is relatively limited, which I love because I work mostly alone. I don't have to deal with all hands meetings or, seven layers of managers just to try and get something done. So that's been really nice, just cutting out the fluff. I've been in so many large companies where a lot of your time is sucked into these unnecessary meetings, like could have been an email type of meetings. And so I've cut out virtually all of that. If I do have admin, it's usually around compliance or coordinating with legal or something like that that's truly necessary for a certain project. And really the most time I spend a day is on my clients, on the actual deals that I work on with buyers and sellers, and actually matching them, which is the whole point. So mostly my core work, a little bit of compliance and admin and operations. And then the other key piece is marketing, just networking, talking to people, trying to be a thought leader, trying to also just give more free value on LinkedIn and other platforms because there's so little investor education out there that's decent quality about my industry. So I'm basically just trying to give away a radical amount of, knowledge and insight to investors, and hoping then they trust my expertise and they'll come on board.
Oh, definitely. That was actually perfectly leading into the marketing topic. So, on this marketing topic, where are you seeing the best results? Is it more of the educational component you're adding, and networking, or is it a little bit of everything?
I think historically and in the current business, the very best source of new clients is referrals from existing clients. So that's still just super, super high value to me. In terms of new marketing segments, in terms of social media, I tried to do a little bit of, TikTok and Instagram. I kind of got to the conclusion that I don't think my target audience is as engaged on those platforms. LinkedIn is a bit more successful for me. So I post heavily on LinkedIn, and that's where I do get a lot of investor leads or partner leads or just people in the industry to learn from. So LinkedIn has been much more fruitful platform. I've also been doing a bit of my own newsletter, putting my hot takes out there, especially things I disagree with, compared to the prevailing knowledge about a certain topic. So that's been really fun. Just getting my actual candid views out there. And then another probably key area, so referrals, number one, always. LinkedIn to a certain extent. I think that's something I'm still developing. And the third pillar, which is probably the second most important, is probably industry partnerships. So, newsletters or companies that are in my niche, this pre-IPO investing world, that already have these embedded communities of basically pre-IPO investors, and they just need a broker to actually connect that community to opportunities. So, for example, there's some other educational platforms or media platforms that focus on private stock. So they have all these people in their community, but they just help with education. They don't actually help people invest. So I've been
Hmm.
able to partner with some of those so that once they educate people, they also have a funnel to send them to. They have a partner like me that can actually help them take the next steps. Like they've learned about what they want. Now I help them actually go get that stock. So those partnerships have been really fruitful as well.
That's awesome. I like that you broke it into kind of that three-part triangle of success. I think that's a huge golden nugget of this conversation for other business owners in different industries. So like, maybe it's not just one thing. It can be you have a triple threat going on in the best of ways. And so you can tap into the what's going to work in each of those. Awesome. Okay, so that is really great. Now I'm curious to where you see yourself going in 2026. What's one of your big, like either a hairy, audacious goal or something you have set for this year?
I really want to multiply what's working well. And to do that, I imagine, I have to remove a few frictions or add some innovation or some extra layer. So for example, I think often, okay, what would it take to 3x or to 5x my business, which actually I had a very good first year. I'm very grateful for that. Very active market. So the first year was great as is, but what would it logistically take to 3x that or 5x that? And I think the answer is twofold. One is having a bit more support, like an operations person, to just help cover more of that admin, more of the non-deal sourcing, kind of more of the back end, essentially, just to free up more of my time for my highest value work. That's, I think, something I can unblock in terms of what takes me to the next level. And the second thing is a new structure. So essentially, usually I match a buyer and a seller directly with each other. There's also a world where I could have my own pooling vehicle, essentially a fund run by me that's specific to a deal that allows me to take in 10 investors and match them to one seller. And because there's 10 investors being pooled together, that allows me to offer them a lower minimum ticket size. So instead of putting in $1 million, maybe 10 people could put in 100K and be matched with $1 million seller. So a lot of people in my industry put together those sort of fund vehicles, and that's something I'm heavily looking into this year. Because one, it just makes matchmaking even more easy and fast in some cases because you can have different combinations of buyers and sellers. But also, I think it's really important to my clients because if I can get deal minimums down, maybe instead of 50, 100K, maybe it's 25K or 30K, that really helps get more people involved and increase access and kind of improves the customer experience as well.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned your clients, and I know you talked a bit about your clients or investors, but I'd love to kind of deep dive into what is your client archetype? Like, if I were to give you a call today or walk through your doors, how would I know I'd be right for you?
I do work with both institutions like funds, family offices, et cetera, and individuals. So I try and stay purposely very well rounded because that way I have the biggest possible combination of people to match together. But I will say a really, really common client profile for me is that high net worth individual investor, someone who is a very busy professional. They've achieved some success. They might be a doctor, a lawyer, small business owner, real estate, finance, what have you, and they've done well for themselves. They've worked really hard. They're in a relatively high income bracket, and they're looking to what's next in their wealth journey, what's next in their investment journey. They're thinking about generational wealth building. They're thinking about something other than just the vanilla products that are offered to them every day. And what's more, they're the type of person that might be using ChatGPT more and more and thinking, wow, this is an amazing technology. AI is going to take over everything. I wish I could have a financial stake in a company like that, a company like OpenAI who runs ChatGPT. Or they might be following Elon Musk and following SpaceX in the news and seeing these rocket landings and getting so excited by the future of space travel. And again, thinking this technology is amazing. how do I actually financially have a stake in something like that? And so that's typically where I come in to help people access these companies that are not on the public markets yet, that you can't just go look up in your Fidelity app or your Robinhood because they aren't there. And I help people get into this really nuanced world of private stock dealing and to get access to some of the companies that they're really the most excited by in the investment world.
Oh, wonderful. This gets me excited about investing, like just hearing you break it down like this. And so now I want to dive into something that's maybe challenging you, especially as you're starting up your business, you're rocking into year two, building your client base. Is there something right now that's like currently really challenging for you? And what's that looking like for you today?
Probably two things come to mind. So one is, I've got experience working at a ton of top companies in my space, but I'm still a relatively new company. So even though I feel my experience and the quality of my service is premium, um, there's still just that aspect of trying to compete with those bigger companies whose service arguably not as good, but they have more mind share. They're more of the incumbent. So a lot of people default to a large company just because they don't know of other options. And so it's just trying to increase awareness that there's other options.
Mhm,
Specifically that not everyone wants a huge company that where they might be passed around a sales team of, 10 people or 100 people.
mhm,
Or not everyone wants a platform that's trying to get them to do these pretty high dollar value deals through a technology platform or through something very impersonal. And many
mhm,
people aren't comfortable with that type of experience. So letting people know there's an alternative, they can work with an experienced human, someone that's going to be responsive, walk them through everything, and where you get to work with me every single time. You're not passed around a team. I deal with every transaction from start to finish. So it's just an awareness thing, and that continues to grow and compound. But that's always the story of the small business trying to compete with this big giant that a lot of people just default to just because. And the second challenge is really just being very intentional around my time because I don't want to go hire a team of 10 people. And so my time, how I split up my day is critical to the business, to the money that I make on a given quarter. There's no salary. There's no, if I don't get the right deals done, there's zero money coming in. So every quarter is a fresh challenge. There's no recurring revenue in the sense of some software businesses or other membership type businesses. I live and die by the deals I do fresh each time. So because of that, I have to be hyper intentional about how I spend my time and try and find the right balance between my core work and more expansionary products. My core work that actually brings in the revenue and also the long-term projects that might not pay me anything in the next month, but they're gonna hopefully be fruitful later. So that means being really disciplined, sometimes saying no to opportunities outside of my core focus and just making sure that I deliver on what I set out to do and limit distractions.
definitely. That makes a lot of sense because of like being solopreneuring and starting and just like divvying out your time accordingly. That's a like finding that harmony is huge. This has been such a great conversation so far. Now I want to take us through a fun part of the Q&A called our rapid fire questions, where I'll be sharing four questions and just answer very top of mind.
Okay.
All right. Question number one is, what is a key to success for you?
Ooh. Key to success is being obsessive about the details of the deals, but also obsessive about making my clients happy.
Definitely. Number two is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
One thing I feel blessed about in my current business dynamic is because I'm a service provider, I don't really have many recurring costs. I can work from home. I don't have to go rent a warehouse or have, cost of goods for a physical type business. And so it may not always be possible for everyone's industry, but I think if you're a service type business and you can keep your costs really low, that's the best way to reduce stress, to maintain the longevity of your business, to reduce risk, and just to free up all that headspace to actually drive forward. So, services businesses where you can keep costs low, I think can be a really great business model.
Definitely, definitely. Now, number three is what is, it could be a book, a podcast, an article, just something that's resonated with you recently.
I always read about health and wellness, biohacking, that type of thing. So there's a book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and more, physical health. And there's also The Courage to Be Disliked, which is another fun one. So I'm always into, personal development and, novel ways to figure out health. And I do feel like health, both mental and physical, is such a big part of longevity in general, but also longevity for business and trying to balance growth with actually supporting yourself through that growth and not getting burned out early.
That is huge. I just wrote down The Courage to Be Disliked. That is one that I definitely need to read. So thank you for sharing that. And our final question, now take your time on this one.
Mm.
If I handed you a magic wand and you had the opportunity to change one element of your business, one aspect of your business,
Mm.
the better, what would it be?
Hmm. I do think it would be great to have a core team of one or two people that already have all the context on this business and these transactions that I've done in the past. There's so much that's in my head that informs my day-to-day work, and I can bring people on board for certain tasks. Often I just have to give them a lot of direction, or um, it'd be great if I could just download everything in my brain when it comes to this industry and the all the edge cases I've seen, stuff like that, and just have a new person magically understand all that so that I can delegate to them more quickly or split things off or have strategy sessions and have them have all the context because it's still such a niche industry.
Mhm.
And so even if I have someone who's exceptionally talented and very, very competent, there's still that element of context that is very time consuming to teach a new person.
Definitely. That is a good one. Thank you for sharing that. And before we get to our final question of the day, how can people connect with you and your business online?
So you can check out my website, Healy Pre-IPO. So Healey pre-IPO.com. I also have a mailing list on there. So you can just get to know how I talk about this industry, see some of my insights, see the type of deals and things like that that can come through, and just get your feet wet with zero commitment. And of course, if you are ready to transact or you want to hear specifically about the market or opportunities for a company, SpaceX, Stripe, OpenAI, Anthropic, whatever, you can also indicate that on the sign up form or contact me directly at Christine at HealyPreIPO.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for sharing that. For our final question today, what is most inspiring to you today?
Ooh, this might be cheesy, but my clients really inspire me. I work with all kinds of people from super busy surgeons to people that work at, Google or tech companies and just all walks to really intense fund managers that are just, savage negotiators, all kinds of people. And a lot of my clients are just so kind and so great. I love seeing them succeed. I love seeing them have they let me know, yeah, my investment tripled or whatever it is. Obviously, that's not every single case. Um, but I love keeping in touch with my clients and genuinely building a long-term relationship with them. And many of them, again, are just so kind. They say, I'm really proud of you for the business you built over the past year or so. Thank you so
Oh,
much. Thank you so much. Those little nuggets that are more human really stick with me and really keep me motivated and wanting to carry on and outperform and figure out how I can serve them even better.
sometimes it is just that one kind sentence from someone that just can make your day all the better. So that was inspiring to me as well. And I'm sure our audience got so much out of this. Thank you so much, Christine, for sharing your story with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Kay.